So back to who I am. I'm Israel. I'm Executive Director here at the Great River Road Visitor and Learning Center at Freedom Park. And the reason I'm here introducing this is because we started connecting some dots here with trail people on conversations that began almost 20 years ago. So when we started Freedom Park 15 years ago, and by the way, be sure to grab one of these afterwards if you want. This tells you a little bit about our history, 15 years of history here at the Great River Road Visitor and Learning Center. One of the first things that we wanted to try to do was connect trails from downtown Prescott into Minnesota and to neighborhoods and schools around Prescott. It's taken 15 years for us to get here, but we have the right combination of people and the right factors going on in our world today. People interested in getting out, and we're excited to be part of something that's bigger than just us. So we started our conversations with the school district in Prescott, with the city of Prescott, and then went to the National Park Service through some of our connections. And you're going to hear about how the National Park Service got involved. Very exciting. This coalition of interested people. Come on in, folks. Come on in. This coalition of interested folks started talking about what could be, and now we're involving you and the broader community as we start shaping things. Want to just dispel a couple of things right at the beginning. One, we have no trails constructed. We have no trails approved. Okay? We don't even know exactly where all these trails are going to go or if they're all going to happen. But we do have some ideas, some vision, some mission that you all can read about here in your little brochure. We can pass those out afterwards. And be sure to pick up a sticker on your way out as well, our Coulee River Trails sticker, because we think that this thing, if it becomes reality, could really transform our community, attract a whole lot of people from around the region, and add tons of value to your lives when it's constructed in the right way. So we're thankful that you're here, and we're especially thankful for all of our committee and volunteers and staff that are involved in this process. And if you are on a committee, on our steering committee or our zone 1, 2, or 3 committee, can you raise your hand so everybody can see? These folks here and others who couldn't be here tonight have put in literally hundreds of hours over the last 2 years working behind the scenes to try to figure out what could happen here. So we're going to hear from our National Park Service as they talk more about what Coulee River Trails is, why they have connected to this project, what value connecting and conserving this unique habitat and the history of the Confluence region can bring for us, our families, our community, our businesses, our schools. And without further conversation on that, I do want to invite you to listen to what they have to say and then save your questions. We're going to have time for questions afterwards, but I want to make sure that you can hear first from our National Park Service partners. And Barrett Steenrod, I think, is going to start, and then you'll hear from Holly Larson. They'll introduce themselves, and Joe Hernandez is here too as well, and I'll let them introduce themselves. And but we'll point out as well Tim Wegner. Tim Wegner, say hi. He's going to be our second presenter. And he is doing some of the trail design at McGee Park and the city property right around McGee Park, along with the school district. All right, so give it up for our National Park Service personnel. Woo-hoo!
Hey, Israel. Terrific. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. My name is Barrett Steenrod. I'm a community planner with the National Park Service. I work on the Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. I've been with the Park Service for around 3 years. My coworker, Holly Larson, will introduce herself in a bit. We both work in St. Paul in this program that provides technical planning assistance at the invitation of local communities across Wisconsin, Minnesota, and the Dakotas. And there are staff in our program that service all the states and the territories of the U.S. So We're going to try and be brief because we know there's a lot of content to cover. I'm going to go ahead and start this by just kind of jumping into a little video that we have about our program, and then we'll start talking about our role in this project.
The National Park Service presents a helping hand for your community. Communities can grow from the seed of an idea. Great ideas can build great communities. Do you want to give your community something that will last a lifetime? Build a trail, create a park, expand outdoor recreation opportunities, or protect natural areas. If your vision is related to natural resource conservation or outdoor recreation, you can ask for help from the National Park Service. The National Park Service has a community assistance program. We help communities everywhere, not just in national parks, by offering technical assistance and advice. But community members use their own drive, commitment, and enthusiasm to lead the project. The National Park Service can help communities learn to get organized, think and plan strategically, find funding sources, navigate state and federal regulations, develop trail plans, create waterway and conservation networks, communicate ideas, and build lasting relationships. If you want National Park Service technical assistance, take the first step today and visit our website. If your idea is a good fit for National Park Service technical assistance, apply for help. We hope to hear from you soon and look forward to partnering on your community-led conservation and outdoor recreation project.
And so that dovetails out very nicely the process that's been the case here in Prescott regarding this Coulee River Trails project. I got connected with Israel Haas about a year and a half ago, and we started taking a walk around the site talking about the project opportunity. Felt like there was a unique opportunity here for the Park Service to provide some valuable assistance on a conservation and recreation project. And they formally applied for our assistance. After a review and a competitive review with some other projects, we accepted this project as one of the areas we wanted to help. And so Holly and I are both involved and excited to be involved in this project, and we're involved in different ways. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of talk about some of our interests particular to this project. You know, we got some bullet points up on the screen there, but really it's a unique combination of outdoor recreation and conservation happening together. Usually it's one or the other. This is an interesting opportunity in that you have a landscape filled with these coulees and these riverine and woodland kinds of environments that are really unique to the upper Mississippi Riverway. And being able to protect those, some of that geology, some of that just natural landform, as well as to thread the conservation element into it. We're excited about that opportunity. We think that's pretty special here. This community has a small town feel at the confluence of the Mississippi and St. Croix. And there's a lot of energy around improvements in this community with the new high school, the riverfront enhancements. So we already see initiative at work in this community. And there's a great sense of community pride. We've seen that with the folks that have come on board in this process in terms of filling up the various committees and kind of taking the action items that come out of those meetings and producing actual results. And so this is a community that is doing things, that is interested. We don't always see that in our projects, and this is one of those projects where the potential is bearing out fruit. It's actually really neat to be a part of. To the next slide. So, our role in this project is really that we're a partner. We're not leading the project. We're not going to be here forever. We're guests in your community, but we are providing our expertise and our insight and our resources where we can. We've been helping get the overall project team and the committees up and running. We've helped make introductions to other potential partners that are part of this process. We'll continue to do that. We have expertise on just trail planning, conservation planning. How do you think about those two things together? Map making is something that we can do. In fact, our fellow Joe, who's there in the back of the room, he made a bunch of maps for Israel and Tim Wegner today, last minute, that will be helpful for them in terms of thinking about some trail alignments in the future. We're helping with how do you do community engagement? How do you engage the public in a way that gets you the best results? You've seen the cards on your table about the survey. We've helped with survey design. So there's a lot of components that we're helping them with. And one of those is just how do you go about putting together a unique combination of public and private lands in a way where everyone's winning, where everyone is getting something that they want, that protects the land, that provides the outdoor recreation. So we're helping them think about those decisions as they come to them and as they anticipate them. Holly's going to talk to you a little bit more. She'll introduce herself. She's going to talk about some of the trail benefits, and we'll go back and forth as we move through our presentation.
So I'm Holly Larson. I'm an outdoor recreation planner with the same program. We're based in St. Paul, and I've been working for this unit for 21 years. So I've done a lot of projects around Minnesota and some in Wisconsin and a little bit in the Dakotas too. So I can tell you from experience, from seeing these projects develop and produce the trails and get these benefits. So there's a number of different categories of benefits. There's family benefits or benefits for you as an individual, including your community is really developing fast. Highway 35, or there may be other highways that might look like that picture there, and you might not feel safe walking or bicycling along it or sending your kids along that. So it's a safer place to walk and bike, convenient and close to home, and low cost recreation and exercise. All you need is a pair of shoes to go out and walk on a trail and have a more healthy, active lifestyle. Closeness counts. When it comes to health benefits, if studies have found that if you live close to a trail, people actually use it and derive some of those health benefits. So this trail system and conservation area system will give you access to some natural areas you might not otherwise have been able to see. It could reduce transportation costs if you walk and bike rather than chauffeuring your kids to school, for instance. It's a great place to meet neighbors as society gets more car-oriented all the time. And you're becoming kind of the bedroom community for the Twin Cities more too, it seems like. So the trails and parks are a great place to meet your neighbors rather than having to wave at them through the car windshield. And then we've also started to get youth involved, and these types of projects are great for kids. It'll be great once the trails are in for environmental education, but also in getting them involved in the process too. They really get a kick out of that. And economic benefits is one of the primary reasons that a lot of communities like trails to increase tourism. You also get a benefit from local tax revenue when businesses are getting more sales tax. Some of that comes back to your local community. If you have a lodging tax and that your tourism increases, then that comes back to the local community, and then that reduces the tax burden that has to be shared among residents through property taxes and other things. Communities get increased revenue, and they're able to provide more services to their residents and maybe even reduce the tax burden for local residents. They're also an efficient use of park funding. Nothing against ball fields, but if you build a ball field, 22 or so people use it at a time, and it's really only used for a few hours a day maybe. Trails can be used from dawn to dusk. They can be used from infant in a stroller to somebody an elderly person in a wheelchair or something. It's used by all ages at all times. So it's a great use of park funding. Oh, I did want to mention Lanesboro, Minnesota is one of the poster childs for for how a community has been turned around by trails. They have the River Trail system there. It's a multi-use paved trail, and now it's a whole Blufflands Trail system that's centered around Lanesboro, and that's a population of under 700 people. Now they have 23 lodging establishments, and that's the county where I've got some data where how much more revenue the city is getting in from lodging taxes and sales taxes. And then just in Schaefer again, that 2-mile trail, that Swedish immigrant trail near Taylor's Falls, it's going to be 20 miles long, but just with that 2-mile segment in Schaefer, I was just there this fall. They built, there's a bike shop that has established in that small little community there because that trail has come to town. The Mesabi Trail is in northern Minnesota from Grand Rapids to Ely. They did a study not too many years ago and found that visitors who came over 50 miles, traveled 50 miles or more to get to the trail, spent an average of $144 a day. And for a group, it was $1,700 per trip. So that's outside money coming into your community. And groups stayed extended their stay for an extra 2 days in order to enjoy the trail. There's also conservation benefits from a system that's being contemplated for this area. Be able to preserve or restore the forests, some coulees, stream valleys, prairies, and your community is developing so fast that now is really the time to do it. If you want to have forests in your community in the future, you need to think about these kind of things now and preserve them. Some corridors. It's natural flood prevention too. During floods, if rivers have a natural place where they can go and soak into the ground, that's the less flood that will be flooding your backyards and commercial areas. Trail systems can provide wildlife corridors for deer and other animals. It can preserve good soil and keep creeks and rivers more clear. And then also cleaner air from biking and walking and the preservation of trees. And then people can learn about nature and connect with the land. I think people who lived in this area for a long time really enjoy the connection to the land, and maybe new residents coming in suburban type developments are going to lose that connection unless there are places like this where you can go and feel that, feel the nature around you. This is an example, Crosby Ironton area in Minnesota, not too far from Brainerd. This is another example besides Lanesboro where trails have turned this community around. And I can testify to it. My family has a cabin north of there since 1969. So I've seen the decline after the mines moved out. They had lots of empty stores. Then some antique shops moved in, but there were a lot of empty storefronts for many decades, really. And then they had a state recreation area that was just vacant, and a group of community members decided to build a world-class mountain bike trail system on it, and Tim Wegner was involved in developing that. And they've gone from about 50% empty buildings downtown to no vacancies. There's many new restaurants. There's a new brewery. There's a great ice cream shop if you ever go there. There's a coffee shop. There's a bike rental place. It has really turned the community around. They bring in $2 million annually into the local economy with 185,000 visitors. That is a big, very big system, as I showed you. And now Vera's going to tell you a little more about the project.
Sure. So one thing that I just want to underline, Holly had worked on that Swedish Immigrant Regional Trail, and then they've asked for our help again. I'm working with them to try and bring pollinator habitat back along the trail corridor. So it just underscores the importance of trying to do both at the same time. And she kind of gave you numbers around, you know, the benefits. $887 billion is the size of the outdoor recreation economy. It diversifies your economy. So when you look at project area and you think about that in relation to your community, you know, you have this parkland right in the middle. Most people weren't even aware of it until Israel started making a lot of noise about it. And it's an amazing piece of land, and it provides natural connection into other parts of the community, potentially a connection to Prescott High School. There are ongoing conversations between the steering committee and other committees around how would this whole area work together, between being some privately held land and some publicly held land. I'm not going to speak to any of those details other than to say that if, you know, that there is a lot of favor among the various entities involved, whether it's public or private land. Now, you know, it's not perfect, but there is a work being done in this direction. So, you know, you're thinking about connections from the high school all the way down to the riverfront someday, with the McGee Park being in the middle. Future homeowner development happening around this area. So, in terms of creating an amenity, there are the connections that this would create, both from a biological and recreational standpoint. There would be a large enough kind of area to potentially have regional significance and allow the space for those kinds of amenities that could potentially bring in visitation, that brings in the dollars that benefit the community in the ways that Holly had talked about. So just in terms of an overview, I think there's a couple of main points about this, and you're seeing some imagery from throughout the site, from down to the river, through some of the coulee, up to the school area. There's habitat protection, which would be a component of it. There's going to be ecological or habitat restoration is a component of it. Some of this landscape's in really great condition. Some of it is in a condition that's very disturbed and prone to perpetuating invasive species into other places unless it's dealt with earlier rather than later. And then there's unique geological features that are worth protecting. You know, we know that they're there. Some folks know that they're there. We want to show them to folks, but we don't want them to get loved to death. And so thinking about all of this kind of together enables for long-term enhancement and protection of some of these assets from a conservation standpoint. From a recreation overview, you know, the imagery kind of shows you an idea of what this trail system could be, right? From the walking, the hiking, the ADA use, the winter use, the adventure use in all seasons with fat tire bikes. You can be operating in any of these kinds of climates. Some of the trails would likely be paved. Some of them would be mountain bike or natural surface trail, and that's still being developed. If there are going to be ADA trails, which we're planning on, those are going to be 8 to 10 foot wide surfaces, but it would have no more vertical obstruction than about a 1/4 inch, so that, you know, folks who are in wheelchairs or are potentially affected by a disability. You know, I'm a runner. I haven't been able to run, so I need good surfaces to walk on these days. You know, whether you're permanently disabled or it's temporary, having trails that meet your life need where you stand is important. So this project is trying to do all of those things. Just in terms of the user groups, there's certainly local residents, Prescott residents, adjacent residents, and visitors, kind of on accident, visitors on purpose. But then also just across the life cycle, explorers, commuters, casual users, sports enthusiasts, gearheads, regardless of age, gender, class, any kind of ability level would be able to find something to utilize in a trail system like this. And then Holly's going to talk to you about, well, what does it take to do this from this idea to the end?
And I guess I got that wrong about the great idea coming up last year. What did you say, 20 years ago?
20 years ago, yeah, we got another 20 to go, so we have 40 years. Is that what it is?
Well, that's not uncommon, that it kind of stews for a while, it might get some energy and then lax for a while and then spring back up when the time is right. So we've been working with the community on startup and organizing, starting to talk about who's going to own some of this land, who's going to manage it, maintain it last year and this year. And then we're beginning to create a master plan, Tim's been working on trail design already. So that'll be, the master plan at least will be from now until the spring of 2022, so just this next spring. So we'll have some more public input on that master plan when we have a draft ready. So that master plan would have some potential alignments and talk more specifically about the trail users, who's going to own and manage and maintain the land and all that. So we expect to get that done in the spring as well. And then we will need to go through an approval process, since this involves the school, probably going to the school board, and also the city council, and perhaps some other entities. So we'll have a review process, and with each of those there would also be a chance for public comment as well. So you can watch for some opportunities to comment on the next stage of this. And then we're timing this to hit the grant cycles for some state and federal grant that comes up in May. So we'll begin applying for some grant funding. And then it is possible that some habitat restoration and natural surface trail development might happen in McGee Park this coming growing season, depending on approvals from the city and that kind of thing. And also possible this coming summer or the summer after that, depending on the school district and timing of some other things for the same type of things. Habitat restoration, invasive species removal, and natural surface trail development may happen. Those would be the first kinds of trails to be developed on the government land there. And then I know that's not very detailed there, but we're thinking of a 20-year time frame to phase other trail development and conservation activities within that next 20 years. And we would lay that out, the proposed phasing in this master plan. So next spring you'll be able to see how we picture that going and comment on that. So that's all we have for you.
Awesome. We're going to hear more from Barrett and Holly in our Q&A session. But any pressing questions that can't wait, you just have to talk about it. You just have to ask it right now, and it can't wait for another 15 minutes. Oh, after I say it like that, nobody's going to answer a question, right? Okay, so if you would take a little stretch break, and I'm going to have Tim come up here. And Tim is, let's see, I will transition our slides here in a minute, but Tim Wagner was the first crazy guy who really started taking this project to the next level here. And I got Tim's name from this other crazy guy sitting right in the back, Tom Guyer, who was one of my first contacts. I started reaching out, just hearing about what was going on in the community. My first contact was Prescott, was our, I guess I can take this off for a minute, was the superintendent of schools, Rick Spaguzza. He said, hey, we got these trails over behind our property. You want to do anything with them? Or can we partner? I said, you have trails? Yeah, that'd be awesome. So I started just doing some digging, started asking questions, making connections. And one of the first guys that I connected with was Tom Guyer, who has put hundreds, probably thousands of hours of volunteer labor into the trails at Kinnickinnick State Park and Willow River State Park. And he worked with this gentleman to help us. Oh, good. Is somebody on? Oh, hey, awesome. It's the middle one.
The middle one?
Yep, it's the middle one. Thanks, Jared. I should put you in charge of that. And so Tim, Tom connected me with Tim, and Tim came right out when he heard what was going on, and within 24 hours produced a sketch of some of our preliminary trail work that we now have thrown out. But we have some other really cool stuff. So I'm going to let Tim talk a little bit about his history and why he answered the phone and started connecting with us on this project here.
How do I follow the Park Service people? You guys are really professional. Thank you. Who am I? Well, I've been designing and building mountain bike trails and nature trails and boardwalks for the last 25 years. I've been an advocate of trails. I have served in many different board positions. I've served on the board of directors of American Trails, which is an all-inclusive trail organization. Hikers, equestrians, mountain bikers, motorized vehicles, and so on like that. For 5 years, I served on the board of directors of the International Mountain Bicycling Association for 6 years. I served 10 years on the Minnesota Recreational Trail Users Association, which is a fund that comes back to states. All states get it. I think in Minnesota it comes out to about $3 or $4 million a year, and we disperse it to different user groups, whether they be some be motorized, some be non-motorized user groups. I was also 10 years, I was the International Mountain Bicycling Association rep in Minnesota and the western part of Wisconsin. So yeah, I've been around a long time. A year ago, I used to own a company where I built trails. I found that as I got old, it just got to be a little bit rougher on this old man's body. And so I sold that company a year ago and switched over to just doing trail design. Now, why did I answer Israel's request so quickly? Well, I saw what Tom had up at Kinnickinnick Park, and I just fell in love with what Tom had at that park. It's a wonderful, beautiful, tremendous park. And I thought, well, it's only 10 miles. How much different can this be? And why not get involved? I'm at the point where I'm retired from all my work, so let's go ahead and see if we can kick in here. And when I came in and Israel took me down into the ravine, I go, whoa, this really has some potential. It's untapped. And unfortunately, when you have a lot of public land that has no legitimate activity going on inside of it, you have the activity going on that you don't want to have in your parks. And I'll go to talk to Battle Creek Park in St. Paul. It's a beautiful park right above the railroad. But every year the vagrants would come up off the railroad and climb into the treed areas and would hang out there and camp all summer long. We put some new trails in there, and they didn't like the activity. They don't like being watched. And so, studies have shown if you bring people into an area, the bad people leave. They don't feel comfortable. They don't want to be watched while they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing. So now Israel asked me to talk about how I go about designing trails. And you can put our track up there. Usually I start out with a paper map with contour lines on it. I have a certain guideline that I use to prevent erosion. And some of the trails that I designed that you may know about would be Lebanon Hills, Cuyuna. By the way, that trail only cost $1 million to build, and it's been running 11 years now, opened in 2010, returning $2 million per year. The DNR does not spend much more than $5,000 a year maintaining it because there's volunteers maintaining it. So that's a pretty nice return on investment. I'd take that, wouldn't you? Yeah, I'd take that kind of investment every day. So thank you for bringing that forward, Holly. I appreciate that. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I start with a paper map, much like what you're seeing behind me. That's has 2-foot contour lines on it. I like that because I get the detail. I blow it up to about 30 by 30 inches, and I sit down on a piece of paper and I look at what do we want to do. Who's my customer? Who's going to be looking at this trail? Who's going to be using this trail? Is it going to be a bunch of young kids? Is it going to be a bunch of avid mountain bikers? Is it going to be a bunch of mom and dads and kids? What's it going to be? And then we design the trail accordingly. We try and get a good distance of as much as we possibly can. We watch out primarily for what happens to the water that comes into contact with our trail. We don't want that water following our trail down the hill. We want that water to shed just like it came down on nature. It came down in a sheet. We want it to go sheeting right across our trail. If I follow the guidelines, it works. Tom, it works, doesn't it? Of course. And even at 25 miles of trail up at the Cuyuna project, they don't have hardly any maintenance issues on that trail whatsoever. Now, granted, I'll step off to the side so you can see a little bit better. So I start out with looking at, and I try and we'll take, well, I don't want to do the ADA trail because it's really flat in there. We'll take this one right here that we took up. As you see, the contour lines are going like this. I don't want to go straight up that hill because water's going to come straight down that hill and follow my trail down. So I contour past that.
I'm just going to make this a little bigger here too.
No, okay. No, I just worked my way past that and attempt to work with water. You know, we've dammed up water. Well, you guys know all about water down here. You know the forces that it has right below you here. You see that. And so this not only creates a trail that's going to be sustainable, and people who ride the trail don't think about sustainability, they're thinking about how much fun they're having. And so we want to work fun into it as well, but we've got to maintain that issue about certain guidelines whereby we don't have erosion issues. Now, there are certain situations where you have to break up the guidelines a little bit. It just requires us to harden that trail just a little bit, usually with rocks or something a little bit harder. And it works out to be, works really well. I haven't had too many issues. Like here I cross this one, but I'm still at my grade that I'm going to be sufficiently safe for moisture and water coming in contact with that trail. Now this trail, the footprint on the ground is about 4 foot wide is what we usually do. We can narrow, the construction company can narrow down to 3, or they can even hand build. But they can build about 4 foot wide. So that's about 4 feet, I think. What's interesting is that every trail user uses 18 to 24 inches of trail. You know, I can build a trail 7 foot wide. They're going to use 18 to 24 inches of trail on a mountain bike trail. Now, we build similar to the trails that you'll see in ski slopes. We have green trail, we have blue trail. We won't have any black trail here. But that's a similar type, and then of course there's double black trails as well. Now, I'm going to go down and show you what we did do. I'm going to go into the green trail. So, there is not a good trail in Prescott that has ADA accessibility, which means no more than 5% grade. If more than 5% grade in the short rest area, before you increase or would decrease your grade again. Not only people in wheelchairs use these, but moms with stroller, moms and dads with strollers can also use them easier. And so what we did was we started, okay, so this is the quarry right here. There's apartments are right in here, as I recall. And this is where the recycle center is. And so we started down there, and you see how it was a little difficult to get down, because right now the trail goes straight down the hill, which is going to erode when we get more usage on it. And so we had to go down and cut in that way. I think we got about a half mile, right, Jared, of trail? Half mile of ADA accessible trail with a plan in the future to be up right around 1.25 miles or so, which is a pretty good jaunt. But this trail will be used by trail runners, by hikers, people with strollers, and the beginner bicycle rider. Mom and dad and several children or a child can certainly ride this and ride this very, very safely. Okay. So then you learn, you develop your skills on the beginner trail, the green trail. Then you step up to the more difficult trail, blue trail. There's nothing on here that I can't ride. and I consider myself a much more conservative Blue River Trail rider than I used to be, and really. And so that's where that's going to be. We've got 0.8 of Blue Trail right now. You know, it's a beginning. It's a beginning to a system. And so we kept that all within the city property and within the McGee Park area. I guess the next question I've got is, or statement I want to say, is that the maps explain this design strategy. I wanted to keep everything within McGee Park and the city property because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And so you could have a trail system in here that would, you know, be self-contained and it's into itself. It could be used as itself. And I think there's a few things happening that would probably bode well for the community. You know, being right on the Mississippi River Trail, there's an opportunity there because people on bikes will stop, they'll spend time. They might want to consider a small 1, 2, 3 camping spot area in their remote camping. Those are the kind of thought. In town here, you have a NICA team, correct? No? They have a NICA team here? Now, for those of you who know NICA, but those that don't, NICA is a high school league team. It's where it's not sponsored by the high school, but the kids race for the high school as well as individuals. And I think in Minnesota this year they had about 1,500 or 1,600 riders on that group.
Add 1,000.
How much?
Add another 1,000.
Oh. Well, I wanted to be conservative, Tom, thank you. And your kids need a place to practice. You know, they can't go 10 miles up to Kinnickinnick Park all the time and practice. They can't go up to Willow River. They should at times, but they can't do it day in and day out. Your high school cross-country team needs a place where they can practice their running, and we're looking at developing that. We're working closely with the high school right now. We met with the track coaches last night, and we have a really good handle on what it is that they want on their track system, and I think we can pull off what they want and give them. They need about 3.1 miles for the varsity team and 2 miles for the intermediate school. Yeah. Okay. The other thing is, you guys are really here in a wonderful location. I mean, you're not that far away from the Minneapolis metro area, but you've got 2 brand new trail systems going to be opening up and are opened right now. And it's I'll take an example. You mentioned Cuyuna, but up the road a little ways in Chisholm is another 25 miles of mountain bike trails at Chisholm, a trace called Redhead. Another 30 miles away is Giants Ridge ski slope. They put in about 30 miles of mountain bike trails there. Duluth has put in 125 miles of mountain bike trails. And their goal is they want to be the outdoor recreation, active sports area for Minnesota. They're achieving it. They've got climbing walls, they've got ice climbing, and they've got the mountain bike trails and everything like that. So I guess I'd like to see, those are 3 selling points on this project. The NICA team, your proximity to the Mississippi River Trail, and then being in one part of that 3 trail system that's happening. Willow River's developing, they've got 5 miles done, Tom, 5.5? 5.5. And how many miles do you have done, Tom?
We have about 5 or 6. 5 or 6.
Tom's goal is 15.
River Falls has 7 or 8. So.
You will have the 7 or 8 done?
No, River Falls.
River Falls will have 7 or 8, okay. And I designed Tom's trail, and I designed the Willow River Trail, and they should have about 25 miles of mountain bike trails up there. Tom, you're going to have about 15 to 20? Yeah. So, I mean, you will become a destination trail for this organization, whatever you got here. Safety is something to be concerned about. We know that criminals don't want to be watched. We want to make sure that they know that if you put people into an area, they're going to go away now. And if you build this, they will come. And that is all I have. Any questions? I guess I'll leave that up to Israel to ask questions, and Holly and I can answer.
Yeah, let's, we will open this up to questions here. I'm just going to put a couple of things here. You can leave it, that's fine. That's fine.
No, I'll just get this out of your way.
It's fine. I'm just going to switch screens here to show you a couple of things. There we go. As you're thinking about questions, some of you have asked, well, how far are the trails going to go? Tim started talking a little bit about this. We're working right now, and what you just saw Tim talk through on the trail design, that's city property near McGee Park and city property that's contiguous to McGee Park. One of our challenges right now as we design this plan, we're trying to create a master plan. You saw that when Holly introduced it. Trying to create this master plan that will be ready for approvals and community input by April of 2022. As we are working though, we also just have a lot of eager people who want to transform the community and create something cool. So we have focused on McGee Park because that's an area that we can start working on. It's public property. We have release for some parts of our project from the city council, and we're hoping that we can connect these pieces. So I'm going to speak just a little bit about that, just to give you a little more context to that, okay? But not too much, because there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of conversations, and there's a lot of stuff that we're not ready to be talking about publicly yet, because there's a lot of contingencies, okay? So what you see here, and what Tim pointed out, we're trying to connect pieces all the way up into high school. The high school is a partner with us. They're an official partner. They are 100% behind what we're trying to do. We don't have official trail designs approved and built into the school district 10-year plan yet. We're working with the school district on that, okay? But it is an active partnership. We're hoping that we can create eventually a loop trail, okay? We don't know where that's going to be, what it's going to look like. We're hopeful that as more and more people in the community hear about this, that there will be willing landowners who are raising their hands and say, hey, I want to be part of this. We're not looking at taking anybody's land. That always comes up in any conversation that we have, okay? We're not looking at taking anybody's land, forcing anything on anybody. We're working on creating wins for everybody involved. Not everybody's going to be as happy as everybody else about what's happening. That's just never, you can't please everybody all the time, right? But we're going to work really hard to create something that the whole community can be involved in, and the whole community can embrace, the whole community can be part of creating, and the whole community can benefit from, okay? So we think, vision here, we think we can create a trail system that could potentially have 14 plus miles of various kinds of trails, along with those natural corridors that are protecting butterflies and bees and birds, and protecting our natural geological structures, and also getting us into those spaces so that we can appreciate it and be part of it. If we don't act now, it's going to be gone, just like Barrett and Holly emphasized. So that's why we really are trying to create some urgency around this. This may be a window that will close quickly. So with all of that, I'm going to open it up for questions for our experts, and I'll stay up here just representing the Coulee River Trails organization. Collaborative, I guess. We're really not a formal organization in any way yet. We're hoping to move in that direction, because there are advantages to having a nonprofit, government entities, school districts, all involved together. There's different ways to tap into funds and different strengths that we can all bring to the table. Questions? If you want to introduce yourself, and by the way, just to let you know so that nobody's surprised by this, we have been recording this, And we will make this available in some way afterwards so that others can participate, and I just don't want anybody to be surprised if your question appears in a public setting. Yes, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, Jim Sheely, I'm a resident of Prescott. I'm curious as to how Freedom Park would initially or eventually be connected to the trails that we're talking about.
Good, that's an excellent question. And here's Freedom Park on this little map. I know it's really small in the back, sorry you guys. Freedom Park would connect eventually. We're hoping there's different potentials, but it would connect along streets until it reached an area that has a new trail system. So we don't have anything in scope right now for creating a new natural surface type of trail from Freedom Park to some of these other areas. We're dreaming, but that's not in scope right now. So the Freedom Park Trail would also connect down to downtown, which then connects to paved trails that go into Minnesota and some, I think, 150-something miles of trails that connect up and down along the rivers on the Minnesota side.
And that's similar in Wisconsin to the Ice Age Trail with their trail communities that go right through St. Croix Falls.
We're going to see, we anticipate if once this gets built, and we're working with the city, this is the city project is a project to bring up the trail from downtown Prescott to here at Freedom Park. Working on that, have been working on that. It's been a dream for 15 years. Okay, but we're probably 2 or 3 years away from that, hopefully. And that would create that type of trail corridor like some of the major trail systems. Yeah, other questions? Yeah, if you want to share your name and then your question.
Well, I have 2 questions, but I'm Paula Kalinowski. I live here in town. The first one was just as you were talking about future trails and potential. I haven't looked at the city comp plan for quite a while, but I know I did when they developed it. And they do have some trail corridors in there, although they may be more oriented towards residential, connections in the neighborhoods. Do you know in their zoning ordinances if they have that ability to, when the private land develops, to say, okay, you have to set aside so much for trails?
So I'm not going to speak from a city standpoint, but I will take this one again, if you don't mind, since I've been closely connected here. We do have city council representatives here. I don't want to put any of them on the spot. Feel free if they'd like to speak on behalf of the city in an official capacity. But we've been working with the Parks Committee to incorporate the Coulee River Trails designs, these goals into the city's goals. So the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, follow that. It's all online, it's publicly accessible. You can be part of those conversations if you're a resident of Prescott. The Parks Committee began talking about it last night on a revised comprehensive outdoor recreation plan that includes some trail directives. The full council will be seeing that at the next city council meeting. So feel free to be part of that, listen in, attend the meetings. We want an active community.
It's okay if I ask the second one? Or I'll wait.
Yes.
I apologize if you already covered this in the beginning because I did come in a little late, but I guess what I'm wondering is how are we so lucky to have the National Park System working with us, and is that just for the planning phase? Is that where I assume, your time is money, and where's that, how does that funding link work?
Right. We work where we're invited through an application process, and we go a year at a time. So we officially started just this past winter, I guess, with this group. But we can extend it to 2 or sometimes even 3 years. But it is primarily for the planning stages, and we want to leave the organization in a place where the local community can continue and meet their goals on their own.
Thank you.
We are very, very fortunate to have the National Park Service right in the
Somebody wrote
Rivers
the
Trails
application.
and Conservation Assistance Program. So we here at Freedom Park have those relationships, and this is just to share a little bit about Freedom Park. We have been blessed to be a National Park partner site, and you probably have seen that on our signs out there. Jim Sheely is on the board of directors and started this and has been critical in helping make connections with the National Park Service. Those relationships are what put us in a really good spot. It made us even aware that this program was available. So kudos to all the founders of Friends of Freedom Park. We wouldn't have that connection without that history. So
Does everybody know we're at the merger of 2 national parks? We can punch 2 National Park Service passports at our desk here. St. Croix National Scenic Riverway, Mississippi National River and Recreation Area come together right at Prescott. So we are, if you look at our sign out in front, we have the arrowhead on our sign. And that was part of the agreement that was actually signed in this room with both of those national parks in our facility. So I love the National Park Service. It's a gold standard of everything. We're so lucky, you know. To be
And we're lucky
involved with
as a community, as a city, to have that asset here as part of our network of relationships that's happened here. We had another question. Stacy, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yep, my name is Stacy Minka. Can you go back to the trail map of the different zones?
Yes.
There was the, I think, like the red trail and then the blue trail, no, excuse me, the green trail and the blue trail. What would the uses be for the blue trail? Is that solely mountain biking or would that be walking, other uses?
It can be used for walking, snowshoeing in the winter, that type of winter riding. Trail runners love mountain bike trails to run on. I call them mountain bike trails. We'll call them mountain bike optimized. So they'll be optimized so the mountain bike will be the primary beneficiary of the design, but everybody uses the mountain bike trails. You can go to Lebanon Hills and there are runners on the trails all over out there. Cuyuna allows it. I think you guys all runners on your trail, Tom? Sure. And I don't know about Willow River, whether they're into it. Most of the mountain bike trails and the mountain bike riders and trail runners get along really well. They love snowshoers because they pack the trail down for them in the winter. You know, dogs on leash, not quite so much. It's because the biker's riding at a little different speed than what a hiker is with a dog on leash. So that's one thing. But I would say that optimized users would be, let's put mountain bikers, trail runners, hikers, snowshoers, even cross-country skiers can go on.
I just want to add to that. I ran an ultra marathon several years ago, and if it wasn't for the trails, I would have had no safe place to do that. And my favorite place by far to run was exactly the kind of trails he's talking about. Was they were mountain bike optimized trails. I hardly ever saw a mountain biker because I wasn't running the same time they were. And it was a quiet, good training experience that was more visually interesting than anything else I could have run on. And so I just want to echo those sentiments as a user. Those are the best kinds of trails to run on. So.
And they're well maintained by the user groups. Something that I mentioned NICA group. The coaches require, and the organization requires every racer to spend a certain number of hours each year working and maintaining a trail. And so that's one area it comes from. The other area I have not built, and I've built maybe 100 different mountain bike trails throughout my career with thousands of miles of design work. I've never had a trail that's been built and opened that has not had a group of guys adopt it, get a memorandum of understanding with the owned landowner, whether it be national parks or whatever it might be, where they will go in and maintain that trail for them, and unless there's something major that needs to be done, a big boardwalk or something like that. But invariably, there is a group of anywhere from 6 to 12 people that take it over. You know, Theodore Worth Park, group of guys and gals have taken that over. Lebanon Hill has 12 people in there every Tuesday night. Work from after work till dark. So.
Just a follow-up question. The blue trail is close to owners there, and I'm one of those, and that's why I'm asking about it. What is kind of the thought around safety and the purpose of being so close to houses
Sure.
on a trail from a property owner's perspective?
I understand. I certainly understand that. You know, there's a significant buffer here from this house and this house. There is not a significant buffer at this time. Now, this is concept. At this time from this property line. I went up there, what night did I go up there? I have been on your property, if that's yours. I've been on that property, and I looked at the map after Jared did it, and I said, we got to change that because somebody's not going to be very happy with me. So we just did this quickly that night and we would work with you to find an acceptable distance that you would feel comfortable with. And rest assured that with a trail here, you're going to have a lot more traffic by there. And so I think there will be even less of a chance of somebody who's sneaking in your back way there and wanting to do something inside your property.
Yeah, I understand that. I appreciate that. I think the visibility from the trail is an issue too. Our house, I've been on that trail, kind of where you have it marked, and it's as if we're looking right up here in this big window. And you know what I mean? So that it's
Well, understand that it would be impossible to move it completely away, but I would like to find an acceptable distance where what you a compromise of some kind where, you know, well, if you move it back another 20 feet, 15 feet, whatever, I can live with that. So next time, let's work with that, okay? Yes?
No, I was just going to say, or plants along the trail.
You know, maybe some evergreens planted across there to the back, maybe work in the city.
Yeah, I don't think anything would grow because of the common trees, but it's potential. It's something to look into. I'm no expert on trees, so I'll take some suggestions.
Yeah, maybe either. But you know, I don't see any reason why there can't be some sort of an adjustment there. But I wanted to get it off your property as soon as I saw that. When I saw the map that came out, I didn't like that very much, and I didn't think you would either. We weren't far on your property, just a little bit. But I want to make you feel comfortable. Okay?
Well, we'll be hanging out here, but I would encourage you to check out our website and stay connected to it. Thank you to our volunteers who created this. Man, we don't even have a volunteer graphic designer. We just have a volunteer professor who does an agriculture professor who designs our website, and we're really, really happy with their work, by the way. If you want to be involved in some way with the project, go to the website. If you haven't taken the survey yet, or you know somebody who hasn't taken the survey yet, we're really close to pushing the 200 mark, and we're getting some really interesting results from our survey. And we'll keep you updated, and we'll keep the community and the county updated on what's happening with the, we have just a couple more weeks. We're going to close that survey out. So get to the survey and get involved! All right, there you go. That's our website. Get involved. If you haven't connected with us already and expressed your interest in being part of this project, you can go to our website, CouleeRiverTrails.com, and get involved. There's a little form. You can fill it out. Let us know your name, your phone number, contact information, so we can get in touch with you, okay? And give us a little bit of time. We're mostly volunteers, and the paid staff we're involved are doing a gazillion other things as well. So thanks for being part of this, you guys. We'll stick around afterwards, and enjoy the rest of the evening. We didn't have anybody come in at 7:30, so hopefully nobody else got screwed up. All right. Thanks, everybody.